Summer in the 70s, making lots of friends. He'd be out in the street, in a day and a night. Everybody had a chance, and the future seemed bright. Future seemed bright. Future seemed bright.
Welcome, people. This is Steve Birkin of Hybropsyche. Um, right, this is possibly going to be a new series if it does take off, if more than three of you like it. Um, what this is called, as you might have seen, is called Remember Watching, and it is literally about programs that we used to watch probably when we were kids, etc. Probably concentrating more on the 70s and into the 80s, I would say, for what we're doing. I'm welcoming anything after this for people to suggest anything that they want me to do a talk about, have a quick talk about. So there's nothing, no airs and graces on this, nothing fancy and flash about. I just want to get them banged out, get the conversation going, and just basically get people sort of thinking, oh yeah, I remember that, and then wanting to talk about something else. So yeah, I'll be up for talking about other programs from the 70s following on from this if I remember it myself. So, the first theme that we're doing, as you might have seen on the little title sequence, is quiz shows. So, and the first one I'm picking is Screen Test, which was Marching to and Fro, written by some bloke who had got kidneys. And yeah, the host for most of it, and certainly from what I remember, was Michael Rodd. Now, he started out, the actual program started out in about 1970. And at that point, Michael Rodd, looking back, kind of looked like the kind of cool sort of teacher type of thing. And he even smiled. But as we know with old school teachers, certainly when I was growing up watching things like screen tests and those kind of hosts, you would almost imagine getting a clip round ear hole from them because we grew up in the good hiding era. You got a clip round ear hole, you got a belt round your behind, whatever. Um, so, so yeah, there was a bit element of that with that particular presenter. The concept of the show was to there'd be a couple of kids competing against each other on a panel, and they would be shown a clip from a film and then be asked questions about it. And yeah, so it went on for quite a while, and I think it got a little bit more relaxed where people could start bringing mascots in called Cuddles and things like that a bit later on. But one thing that I do remember particularly about this was they started a program or a project called Calling New Filmmakers. And what used to happen is kids or schools would send in, possibly colleges, that would send in their animation, what they possibly done on Super 8, Super 8, Standard 8, Single 8 kind of silent projector films. Stop photography, lots of stop animation, and that type of thing. Or if the school or whatever, because you can't imagine it being a domestic thing, more likely a school or a college having what they used to call talking projectors, which was the first projectors that produced sound. So there was sound coming out from speakers that were set either side of the screen that was where the image was projected. You'd often see them in schools. We used to have them in we'd leave probably like get to last day of term or last day of the whole year. Um, and yeah, and we'd be watching a film all squashed together in the assembly or watching a film on the talking projector. I specifically remember Robin Hood was one of them and Charge of the Light Brigade being another. But anyway, so what happened? So some of the more sophisticated films that were sent in was one of them where I just remember this guy. It shows him going down this ladder at a pier and basically going for a mess about in the sea. And the long and short of it, and he goes missing, and you just hear the tannoy sort of speaker saying no, or the CB saying, to the lifeboat saying something to the effect of no, he never used a life jacket. So it was like a bit of like a public information film that some college had made. I do remember the sort of jumpy animation or jumpy framing with the film, but that's possibly to do with a line in film with the old style cathode ray television, because that could happen. It was like filming a television off a television. You get all the kind of rippling effect and that type of thing. So that was that one. There was another talking projector film where this kid had got into this shop and he'd obviously bought something expensive, and he starts walking home with it in his big box like this, and these other two like bigger lads come running after him. So he's like, oh, obviously he think he's going to try and nick me box off me type of thing. So he runs, runs and runs and runs down the corner where there happens to be a discarded supermarket trolley. Obviously, some students around there. And so they were just about to come that corner. He shoves the trolley into them. They were like, and then next bit you see, he's run up this kind of like winding walkway to a bridge. And so I think you get it from the camera's point of view as if it's from his vantage, him running up to, to there. And he ends up sitting in the middle because one kid comes one side, the other kid comes the other side. And obviously he's fenced in, he's penned in. So he's just sat there. And one of the kids just sort of like hands him a piece of paper. He says, you do realise you left your receipt in that shop, didn't you? And he just sort of like looks at him and goes, oh, like that, you see. Um, so yeah, other films. There was another one film that somebody had sent in, and I think it was a space adventure, and it was like the kid was the captain of this ship, and for the model of the ship on the outside, they got I think a model of the space shuttle Columbia, uh, but on a black sort of backdrop, so it looked like it were in space. And I remember they just had a bit where they had to turn the ship around. It was literally just a motor just rotating the ship 180 degrees. But the gist of the story, I think, for that one was the kid was in he'd gone out, he'd had some kind of weird dream in space. He must have come across some kind of Star Trekky anomaly. And this, yeah, he came across this, yeah, in this dream, he was chasing this other person. And I don't know if he shot the other person or not, or whether the other person just sort of like fell off the floor and died. But when he sort of pulled him over, it turned out to be his own double. Then he went back to the ship, and then something to the effect of he had to leave the ship for some reason, possibly to chase some phantom. Which, long and short of it, was he got out there, there was nothing there, and he was left stranded. So that was that one. Um, some of the stop animation one, I remember there was some kids doing like talks. Remember the little Lego pieces you had with, you could get a Lego man where you'd stick its yellow head on and maybe stick some hair on top of it or a hat. Could do one of them, then. And the arms didn't move because they were molded into the body like that, but you did have the little legs that sort of flip back and forth. And so yeah, so I remember just sort of like there was these stop animation with the Lego characters and talking to each other in kids' voices. Can't remember much more than that. Something else was called the Green Cheese, and that was another one I think where, yeah, I think it was to do with being on the moon and some creatures on the moon who eventually end up eating the camera as well, or coming towards the camera and suggesting that it's eating you as well. But the eeriest one, which I've left till last, and again, I think it was pretty much a stop animation puppety thing. It starts off where there's an old guy in bed, and I don't think there was any sound to this one. They might have had some kind of atmospheric synthy sort of stuff. And first of all, is in bed reading a book, and it's suggesting I think he probably drops his book and falls to sleep. Then he's dreaming that he's walking through a graveyard, and he sits down, and there's like opposite him, there's like two symbols, like cross-like symbols, and on one of them, the figure of death kind of flickers into existence. It don't fade in, so it's like on and off, on and off, on and off until it's there. So that the black sort of figure of death flickers in like that, and then you see him in the dream. He's starting to die when he's on this bench. Then he obviously wakes up, and it finishes where he stood up out of bed, and all of a sudden, Death is there in his room. So he steps, cowers back, and then falls out at window. And yeah, and then he's sort of like spinning in infinity as if suggesting he's, falling to his death slowly. But yeah, I mean that was for kids. I never forgot that one. So yeah, that was Screen Test. Uh, Went on into the 80s. I think it always had the same theme tune. But yeah, so there we are. There's my thoughts on that. Again, I'm currently doing quiz shows. I've got another idea. The next one might be run around that I might do next. But any other suggestions? At the moment, like I said, quiz shows. If you can think of any quiz shows that you want me to do, and if I remember them, I'll certainly do them. But then, in the fullness of time, could be other things. Other kids' programs that we watched and things like that. And we'll talk about what I remember of it. And I do it when I do remember it. I do a bit of Wikipedia in. So anyway, hopefully this will give you. I'm putting no pictures on here, no sounds or anything like that. It's up, it's for you to go and Google and say, oh yeah, I remember that, and awaken some old memories for yourself. So that's the end of this. Or what I will finish on, which it was very Michael Rod esque when it came to things like Screen Test, because normally when you had a TV show and you had if you had a competition, there'd be a prize if you won. If you won the competition, you get a prize. Send a self-addressed envelope or a postcard to da 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 da, and 8QT. But in this case, Michael Rod always used to finish off with like, and don't be expecting a prize because there isn't one. I thought, yeah. Um, so anyway, so Screen Test. But I might just use this opportunity to plug my latest book. Should hopefully be coming out fairly soon, which is called Tales of Darkness and More, which is a Steve Birkin of Hybropsyche book. Will be available on such as Waterstones, Amazon. You could go into any shop in the world and ask for it. You might get a funny look asking for something like Hybropsyche until I really get big, which I am doing in certain parts of my body. But anyway, that's enough. There we go. Hope you enjoyed it. Watch next time. Because I don't know how often these are going to come through. They might just come in through in ad hoc fashion. So until next time, hello.